Hi, everyone. I don't know if you can hear me. Thank you so much for making the environmental intelligence session a part of your Change Now experience. If you could just take your seats, then we can get started. Thank you. Now, the Grand Palais is buzzing, and I want to invite you to enter this space completely and fully ahead of our session. So close your eyes, a few deep breaths, wiggle your toes in your shoes, feel your feet firmly planted on the ground. Excellent. My name is Jonathan Jennings. I am the co-CEO of a planetary health organization called Health in Harmony, and it is my distinct pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker today, my friend and ally in action, Nora Gerby. Nora is the driving force behind the Environmental Intelligence Project. It's an initiative that bridges indigenous knowledge with modern science and technology. The project links a global network of indigenous leaders to a global network of academics, scientists, and others. And it's not just about reviving ancient practices and cultures. It's about linking indigenous science to modern science, because both of them are necessary to show us the pathway for humanity out of the climate crisis and nature's collapse. Nora's mission is to foster a new generation of stewards of the land. Over the years, my team and I at Health in Harmony have had the privilege of partnering and collaborating with Nora, but also learning from Nora about the urgency that humanity has to center indigenous knowledge in climate action and climate finance. Nora has been an integral part of Change Now since its very beginning in 2017. With her company, Who Cares, she has consistently provided the summit with invaluable insights, editorial, and content on a range of crucial topics. For over 17 years, Nora has navigated the fascinating world of economic diplomacy. Her journey has taken her from the French administration in Canada and the US to a role as chief representative for London in France. A proud Amis indigenous person descended from North Africa, Nora has since the late 1990s immersed herself in the foundational principles of indigenous knowledge from around the world. And these principles, reciprocity, community, circularity, interconnection, and regeneration, they are the building blocks of the Environmental Intelligence Project. With this project, Nora offers us a fresh perspective, one that has the potential to rewrite the rule books of societies and businesses. So please join me in welcoming my friend and one of the originals of Change Now, Nora Gerby. Rock and roll.
Can you guys hear me? Yes, now you can hear me. Hi, and welcome to this year's Change Now. I'm very happy to be with you today, and I will be sharing with you the very introduction, or a very introduction, to what indigenous knowledge and environmental intelligence can do for our world. The word intelligence finds its roots in the Latin word intelligentsia, meaning the action or faculty of understanding. While artificial intelligence dominates contemporary discourse, we must not neglect the myriads of other forms of intelligence that are overlooked today. Let us not forget the intelligence that has shaped our world and our planet. Intelligence is a multifaceted phenomenon that extends beyond the realm of artificial intelligence. It encompasses the spectrum of abilities from the raw cognitive power of scientific mind to the intuitive wisdom of elders, to the emotional intelligence that guides our social interactions, and the creative genius that fuels art and innovation, just like this space, I mean. This intelligence is not solely individual. It manifests as collective intelligence within the human societies, emerging from interconnectedness, knowledge sharing, and collaborative problem solving. And Change Now, again, is another proof of that. We must also recognize the intelligence inherent in the natural world, evident in the intricate network of ecosystems and the sophisticated survival mechanism of organisms. And finally, the wisdom of our ancestors, passed down through generations in philosophies, traditional knowledge systems, and cultural practices. They all offer invaluable insights into human existence and our place within this larger ecosystem. But we're humans, so sometimes we tend to presumptuously think we know and understand many forms of intelligence. This multiplicity of intelligence encompasses cognitive, emotional, somatic, spiritual, and now even artificial forms. But the ability to navigate and integrate these intelligences will remain a distinctive human superpower. And today, that superpower is directly linked to our capacity to embrace our innate and fundamental environmental intelligence. The numerous expressions of nature have yet to be fully grasped. We still don't know all of the beauty that exists in nature. And these perfect expressions remain the basis of our global human understanding of things. Throughout history, intelligence has been processed mostly through pattern recognition. And most intelligent tests today, or at least in use today, are still based on pattern recognition. And pattern-based identity signatures are very and actually embedded into the animal kingdom. But how they are recognized is still poorly understood. And although computer algorithm can spot patterns, an algorithm has not been yet developed that outperforms the human mind or nature itself. And that's a fact, or at least not yet. We're not there yet. So becoming self-aware of our connection to nature puts every one of us in reach of discovery and innovation of a new kind. This moment isn't only about AI or algorithms. This moment, I believe, and I know a lot of people believe, is about reclaiming, grasping, and merging the three essential intelligence found and immense knowledge found in nature. So first, by understanding the immense knowledge that we have in nature. The second, by reclaiming the intelligence of our ancestors, indigenous wisdom, and its wide range of ancestral practices. And third, by grasping the wide array of innovation that have been developed at rapid speed in the last 50 years, just so they don't go rogue on us, because it's scary. These are the principles of environmental intelligence. And this combined intelligence can only serve us in the most optimal and optimistic way. So now you might ask, why does it matter? I think it matters because our ecological and technological transitions are intertwined. They're codependent. So when we trace the word the source of a word, it's a beautiful way to start to understanding anew. So what is intelligence? In a culture obsessed by the one form of intelligence, which is everywhere now, I think we have a duty to remember the path of our human and planetary intelligence, our own and that of the planet. We tend to forget. So we are creating solutions, and that's great, new technological solutions, but we should first understand the patterns of nature. This will help us anticipate how each interaction with software will have us evolve. If we fail to fully grasp all the form of intelligence in and around us, we could miss out greatly on grasping the new forms of intelligence that are being born. And we might miss out on certain fundamental dogmas, ideas, and values. I have questions. I have questions for all of us. Why not fully tune in first in the ancestral wireless network of trees before solely focusing on the wireless networks recently developed? That's a legitimate question. I think a lot of us have that question. Intelligence and understanding also invites us to delve into our perception of trust. It's another big issue that we're facing. Should we trust the various ancestral forms of intelligence of nature, which have sustained themselves for millennia? Or should we trust only the newly developed forms of intelligence developed by mankind? What do we want to trust? own it and to own the earth and its resources. And in doing so, we lost the knowledge and the intelligence that comes with it. But it's not too late. I think in a time of acute technological intelligence and savviness, any well-educated person should know how a basic engine runs well enough to repair it if necessary. So our true intelligence today lies in our ability to go from asking how an engine works to asking how a forest naturally works or how a river naturally works. This is the leap that we need, a leap into EI. Thank you very much. And to continue this conversation, because as I mentioned, I wanted to be surrounded to understand the context of environmental intelligence with as many people as possible. And within the work that I've been doing, I've been so fortunate to meet many, and one of them is the great Nigel Crawhall, who is the Chief of Section of Local and Indigenous Knowledge Systems at UNESCO. Please join me. Nigel, yes, please. That was intense. Thank you for being with me today.
It's a great pleasure.
If you could please tell us what your day-to-day looks like at UNESCO, working with all these wonderful Indigenous groups.
Well, I don't know if you really want to know what I do day to day, because there's a lot of bureaucracy in that. But just to say, my background is working in the Kalahari Desert.
Yeah.
So I worked with the last group of people who were getting a land claim and discovering a language that everyone thought had disappeared, but then working with the old people and the young people to transmit that knowledge. So the knowledge was getting lost, but once the land came back, then the people were able to regain their knowledge, and with that, the language. So what I'm doing this week is setting up some programs between hunter-gatherers in Namibia and in Tanzania to do training about how to use new technologies to apply indigenous knowledge to biodiversity challenges in Tanzania at the moment.
And when you and I spoke to prepare, you gave me like a few examples of like concrete, because I think a lot of ways that we all almost think of Indigenous people and groups and their knowledge, we always think that it's very poetic and beautiful, and it is, but it's also very technical.
It's very technical, and that's why the indigenous languages matter so much, because they carry that specificity. So just a couple of examples is one of the knowledge systems that almost disappeared, but is coming back, is long-distance ocean voyaging in the Pacific. So all those islands in the Pacific, from Papua all the way to Rapa Nui near Chile, were done without any modern technology, but by extremely sophisticated knowledge systems. So if you get it wrong, you disappear out in the ocean. But people can land a boat at a distance of 2,000 kilometers within 100 meters of where they wanted to. But the amount of knowledge you need to know for that, the night sky, the movement of the celestial bodies, but also the physical shape of the ocean. So how fast the currents are moving, how high the swell is. It's like a type of trigonometry, but all through an indigenous system. It almost disappeared, but many of the songs, poems, stories of the Polynesian people kept those elements there, even though they couldn't do the sailing. And now they're bringing it back. The other example we're working with, we did a project with 6 different African pastoralists, nomadic herding communities, around their understanding of climate change. And normally when you talk about climate change, you're talking about air temperature, wind speed, or sea surface temperature. In their indigenous system, they had more than 1,200 indicators to tell us how seasonal changes are happening and the fluctuations in climate. So the precision is much, much greater. And we had an example with the Maasai in Tanzania again, where they have a whole taxonomy for weather patterns, which is much more sophisticated than what we have in English or in Swahili. And in exchanging with meteorologists, they help meteorologists understand what type of seasonal changes are happening using indigenous knowledge completely.
And so, are you working also with group that are outside of UNESCO, corporations, companies, countries that are looking to integrate this knowledge into their work for climate
Definitely.
change, obviously?
Yeah, I mean, our job is fundamentally, our strategy is to work within UN framework. So you just have a panel going on around the Convention on Combating Desertification, on biological diversity, and on climate change. So we take those frameworks and we say, what type of knowledge is necessary to solve some of those problems? Then we go and support communities at grassroots level to bring that knowledge to the national science academies, to the national government, to the policymakers, but back up the UN. So we're saying there has to be a vertical integration of multiple types of knowledge so that we can kind of triangulate what the challenges are and look for solutions. But we also say with climate adaptation, it only happens in situ. So it's the people who live there in the desert, in the rainforest, in the Himalayas, they're the ones who are living it. So how to empower them with their knowledge, but they need to connect with private sector. They need to connect with government, so we have an enabling environment. So it makes it easier for them to bring their knowledge about governance to the landscape or to the seascape.
And maybe you can tell us more about the EDIL program, the Indigenous Language Preservation Revitalization.
Right, so we're very excited. So the General Assembly of the United Nations has declared the period 2022 to 2032 the International Decade of Indigenous Languages. So I ask your audience, how many human languages do you think there are? So anybody who thinks there's 1,000 languages, put up your hand. Okay, anybody who thinks there's 3,000 languages, put up your hand. Anyone who thinks there's more than 5,000 human languages? Okay. We've got some good people in the audience. So there's more than 7,000 human languages in the world. And the part that we've been trying to get governments to understand is that's not an accident. So there is a correlation between human linguistic diversity and biological diversity. So the more you go towards a high biodiversity zone, you have many more languages. So Gabon, you have 65 languages. Nigeria, as you go into Delta, 440 languages. Tanzania, 120 languages. But when you go to the Arctic, you basically have one language that crosses all the way from Western Alaska to the east of Greenland. If you go into Sahara, it's mostly Tamashek that is used there, and the same in the Mongolian deserts. So there's a correlation. And what we're trying to help people understand is it's related to governance, it's related to knowledge, it's related to livelihoods. So if we destroy biodiversity, we lose languages. But if we lose languages, we're losing the knowledge that has sustained that biodiversity. So within the global action plan on the International Decade of Indigenous Languages, we've included goals on biodiversity, climate change, ecosystems, freshwater systems, and we're trying to help the communities and government understand mobilizing indigenous languages is really a key element in our current solutions that we need.
So it also helps us understand that UNESCO is much more than just World Heritage. It's also World Heritage through language.
We love the World Heritage Convention. The World Heritage Convention is the most successful convention in the world, and it deals with sites. So we're also trying to get governments to say we have more than 2,000 UNESCO sites, so the biosphere reserves, the geoparks, and World Heritage. So you want to sign up for our parks? We say also work with the indigenous and local knowledge systems. So
Yes.
How can you bring that in to have better results? So there's a heritage element, but there's also a sustainability element. And so the convention has really taken that on board, and we work with a network of indigenous people who live inside UNESCO World Heritage sites.
And you're also interacting with scientists and academia, I believe.
Yeah, that's our big specialization. So you may not know, most people know about the Intergovernmental Platform on Climate Change, but we work with the Intergovernmental Platform on Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services. It's the way the UN gets knowledge from science to decision makers. So our job at UNESCO is to create dialogue between indigenous knowledge holders and scientists. And it's not so easy. They're trained in very different ways. And the way indigenous knowledge is produced, its value system, who has the right to know it, is not the same as science. So in science, you should be able to do the same experiment in Paraguay as in Paris. But indigenous knowledge is very specific to the people and the location. So there's areas where, you know, you have languages spoken by only 100 people, but they've been there for several thousand years. So we're trying to teach scientists how to listen, understand indigenous knowledge paradigms, the environmental intelligence that you're talking about, and then bring that back into policy. So with IPBES, we've been through 10 assessments, including the 2019 global assessment, and every one includes dialogue and indigenous people working on the content.
And I think what's really interesting is that at UNESCO, you're sort of like the catalyzer of connecting all these moving parts. I was, last summer, I was meeting with archaeologists from Columbia University who were doing some field work, but they were looking at these artifacts, but couldn't really place their story or even their context or their usage. And I think it's very interesting that you kind of play the connector.
We're the connector, that's our job. You know, we're a small team working on indigenous knowledge. We're the only unit in the whole of the UN system, but we're influencing everyone on climate change, on biodiversity, on ecosystems. And I love working with archaeologists because they're often like, they just don't have the underlying knowledge. So we had an example in South Africa where they kept showing us a bone, and we're like, why is this bone there? We don't know. And then I said, well, just speak to the indigenous people. They're still using that bone. You have to put a plant inside it, you hit it with a rock, and it creates fire, and you can carry that fire all day long. So it's today used in the Kalahari, but you find it in sites that are 10, 20,000 years old in South Africa.
Yeah, because one of the projects of the environmental intelligence is also to recontextualize these artifacts, because we don't know these tools. What could they be in the future? What could they be in this context?
Exactly. Yeah, and particularly where it's sensitive things like plant knowledge or different animal species that don't leave a trace in the archaeological site. The thing is that humans are a lot more clever than we sometimes give them credit for.
Yeah.
And you know, the whole of the Pacific was populated just by indigenous knowledge, and the whole of Africa and the Himalayas and the Andes, and people have taken care of the planet for a very long time, and now we're not valuing that. And our goal is to say multiple knowledge systems for complex problems are going to give us better solutions. So it's not that one group is right or the other group is right, it's that dialogic process. But if you think that Mayan people ran an entire underground water system that covers thousands of kilometers for millennia with successfully not polluting any of the water system, that's something we're not achieving today. Today we're having problems with groundwater pollution and you know, like from mining and things, the impact on the water. And indigenous people have been protecting the water since time began. So there's some real lessons to learn there.
Yes, and it's kind of interesting. It makes me think of, while I was preparing for Change Now this year, I was having a conversation with one of the speakers, and it was like, I'm not reinventing the wheel, and I'm like, well, maybe we should be reinventing the wheel or improving it, not reinventing it, because a lot of the tools that we have today are really coming from, you know, we kept essentially using the same tools, especially when you're in a space like this, you realize that we're innovating, which is innovating. The real meaning of innovating is making new with something already existing. It's not creating something from scratch. So let's innovate.
I mean, I think the scale of the problems we're facing, people are underestimating the intensification of the interfaces of climate and biodiversity and water. This is accelerating, and what we knew from the 20th century is not going to give us all those answers. But also having that long-term strategy, like looking at the last 1,000 years of human knowledge and then trying to figure out, we've been through some variations in the climate system and people have memory of that. So what is it that takes to have sustainability? But I think you opened the conversation correctly. You have to see the holistic approach to the human behavior, the collective behavior, the ecosystem, the value system. When you put all of that together, then you come up with those solutions. But trying to say that a single scientific intervention is the answer, or that's not going to work. We know that. So how do you have the whole society, whole government, and these multiple partnerships? And in doing that, we can move forward.
Thank you so much, Nigel, for your contribution and for beautiful spirit. Thank you. Thank you. I think you can put it here. Oui, oui. Merci beaucoup. Merci. And now, don't know, I think there's a little jingle in between. I'm going to be welcoming two great other speakers with me to continue this conversation. I'm actually going to call back the wonderful Jonathan Jennings, who introduced me, who's the co-CEO of Health in Harmony. So he's going to join me back on stage, and he will also be joined by a wonderful, wonderful filmmaker, Fanny Lindström, who has just come back from a very long trip in Sweden with the Sami people. Fanny, please join me. And Jonathan, thank you for being back.
Thank you for having me back.
Thank you. So Fanny, I'm going to start with you. And perhaps you want to introduce yourself, and you insisted on saying something before you were going to speak. So please.
Yes, hello. I'm Fanny, and I'm a documentary filmmaker. I am a storyteller, and I use that tool to connect, to tell people's story, and to make people care. And there will be actually a teaser of a project that I'm working on right now that is about a young Sami woman named Evelina. And she was also invited to speak today, but sadly they're moving their reindeers. She's a reindeer herder. They're moving their reindeers from their from their winterland to their summerland, so she couldn't be here today. But she has said that she really wants me to be here and represent her. I'm not Indigenous, I'm not Sami, I'm Swedish, but it's very important to have that bridge and
But they commissioned you as their ambassador for the day. But they commissioned you as their ambassador for the day.
Yes, exactly.
So I believe that we're going to be seeing your film first, if the tech team is on board with us. Yes. We have it here.
Et voilà.
Man har inte lämnat något spår efter sig. Man har ju alltid arbetat för att lämna så lite spår som möjligt. Man lever ju ett med djuren och naturen. Jag personligen får ju dagligen hat skrivet åt mig på sociala medier. Hot om att de ska komma och döda mina renar. Det är lappjävlar, det är ett onödigt folk som inte borde finnas. Nästa gång jag ser en sån jävel så attackerar jag. Man hittar renar som har blivit skadeskjutna eller plågade av människor som demonstrativt vill visa sitt hat mot samerna. Man känner sig hjälplös. Mitt renverk, det är ju det mest personliga jag har. Det är ju mer personligt än mitt namn. Garra gure krosset, olke slupch gure autelt.
Moving and very, very powerful. I actually found out, just a little pause, just in context of Indigenous people, I found out that my people are somehow connected on a genetic level to the Sami. And it kind of explains something to me because I've been so adamant about having Sami people speaking at Change Now. And we're close to this with your representation, and hopefully next year we can have a delegation from them. Tell us about your experience with them and how you've been welcomed, because it was such a process for you to be integrated.
So, yes, a little context. I'm Swedish, I'm from the capital, and growing up, we don't really learn anything about Sami people. They're part of Sápmi, which is in Sweden, it's in Norway, it's in Finland, and parts of Russia. And it's a bit mad that we don't get that, don't get those stories, because it's such a rich and important culture for us to learn. And I've been doing films for 12 years, and I've been all around the world telling other people's stories. And it dawned on me like 4 years ago that I am around in other people's gardens cleaning up, but I need to go back to my own country and and tell those stories, because it's so important to be that bridge. And I feel like I want to and I can. And it started on me just going. I reached out and I went to a lot of different communities. It's very, very long. It's 9 different languages, a lot of different type of people. And I went there, I ate with them, I went with them, and I continuously showed up, which people don't do. A lot of people come and they want to tell their stories, they want to take their photos. It's a lot of exploitation when it comes to people telling their stories. And I now, 4 years later, have gotten the trust to come and be part of this reindeer marking, for example, and to come back being a friend, being an ally. And it's about keep showing up and doing the work. Like, I think it's so important to be that bridge. And my friends, they're so tired. They're born into a fight. Today they feel like, Evelina was something she says that if she would choose to be born again, knowing how it is to be a Sami woman in Sweden, in a country that people don't think that this is happening, she says that she would choose not to be Sami. And that's such a sad reality. And it's like, and it's that type of story that I feel like I have the responsibility to tell.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and I think it's interesting how you trying to recontextualize through your work and through film, but there's also there's a lot of pain, like you show the pain, but there's also a lot of beauty, and you try to weave the two together in such a great way. But maybe you can tell us more about the ecosystem, like the reindeer culture. Like this something like, everybody saw, apparently the Disney movie Frozen is based on the Sami people.
Yes, and it's actually, it's very much so. The Sami people love Frozen, so that's something that it's important to know. And Evelina's mother comes from the village where Frozen is based on, or the wild people or the forest people. And they live very much for the land. Their language is built they have 100 words for describing how a reindeer looks. They have 100 words to describe how snow looks. It's very much, within the nature. And they have, historically, they've been very suppressed. They weren't allowed to speak their language. They weren't allowed to do their culture. And the reindeer saved them from cultural, destruction. And they were able to, they still kept their language through their relationship with the reindeer. And it's
Sorry?
So
the word that you're looking for? You're looking for a word?
No,
You're in disbelief. You're in disbelief that at this day and age, that's what you and I were speaking of when we were preparing, that they would be experiencing this and not being integrated within the society. But if you look at what's happening in Greenland, which everyone knows about, it's the same kind of dynamic where the steward of the lands are being compromised within their own identity first, and then in their sovereignty. First it's an identity thing, which that's why the work of UNESCO is so important, and then it's a sovereignty aspect. But in reference to this, I think one of the great way that we can work with Indigenous people is something you, Jonathan, have done, which you also do. You create content that way, But the way that you do it, you describe it as radical listening. And perhaps you can tell us what radical listening means, because I think in our society, we are so we're so environmentally technologically intelligent. We're lacking in environmental intelligence, and we sometimes don't read the room, like we all on our phones, and we don't radically listen to what people are saying to us.
Yeah.
So
I might need. Is this working?
a microphone.
Yeah.
No, you have your.
Is it working?
I don't know.
Is it not? It's not working.
I think.
Hello.
Yeah, maybe you use the microphone.
Thank you. Thanks, Nora. So one of the things I want to start by saying is Earth's tropical rainforests are a pillar of our biosphere and our climate and our planetary health. The people who live in Earth's tropical rainforests, indigenous peoples, Afro-descendant peoples, and traditional peoples, they are the pillar of these life-giving rainforests. And that is the same across ecosystems. But in Health and Harmony, we work in tropical rainforests. So knowing that they are the experts in protecting the heart and lungs of our planet, we enter into their communities upon invitation through a trust and reciprocity-based anti-colonial approach that we call radical listening. And we listen. They design the holistic solutions that they know will allow them to be the guardians of the rainforests that they've been for 50 or 60,000 years. And then we transfer and move global resources into the implementation of their solutions. Again, holistic solutions, including sovereignty, self-determination, including access to healthcare, alternative livelihoods, including forest economy. So radical listening is very, very simple. The climate crisis is an emergency. The ecosystems that are collapsing don't need to if we only listen to the people that for millennia have understood how to steward these life-giving ecosystems. And we have the data, 20 years worth of data, to demonstrate what Santiago called co-benefits this morning, but to demonstrate when you transfer resources into the hands and the climate critical wisdom and expertise of indigenous peoples, the return that you get in forest cover, in carbon sequestration, in biodiversity, in their own thriving is monumental. And we publish this data in Western, quote unquote, non-indigenous places so that we can show policymakers and scientists the extraordinary value of indigenous sciences and expertise.
I think maybe one of the examples we can give, a concrete one. I like to be rooted in action and concrete, ways of understanding. You and I, when we were to one of the latest COP, we were speaking, and we had one of the women that you work with in the indigenous a rainforest in Congo, in the Congo Basin, and she gave one very simple example. In the Congo Basin, there are 7 ways to say cricket. And it's not that they have seven different types of crickets. Right. It's just that depending on the ecosystem and the climate, the name of the cricket vary. And so if there's a drought coming up, the cricket has one name. If it's a rainy season, the cricket has a different name. And I think these are the types of knowledge that we don't have. Maybe they have a different way to name the reindeer depending on the weather patterns. Should it work?
Hello?
Yeah, I think
yes. Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting to hear because it's language is built on where they are in the world. And as you say, and as I mentioned, reindeers, there's so many words of it, and there's so many words for the season, and there's so many words of describing a place in the season, in nature, and that only shows us the value and the knowledge that they have just by seeing the languages. We were hearing about languages before also, and it's something that we really need to learn more of, and it's something that opened my eyes from just being a collaborator. I mean, I was I don't know if you saw in the film when they cut they cut the ears of the reindeer to mark who the reindeer belongs to of the reindeer. And I was just now with Evelina up north in the north of Sweden, and she saw a reindeer. We were driving down the road, and she saw a reindeer like really far away, and she could spot who that reindeer belonged to, and she knew everyone in the area who belonged to which reindeer and how they're cut. And those cuts are there's not Swedish words for them, they're not English words for them, they're only words in Sami. So that speaks a lot about the different how the languages are built.
A word from you, Jonathan. One more example, perhaps.
One more example. In Indonesian Borneo from 2008 to 2018, the community's solutions, and this was in a piece of rainforest about 200,000 hectares, a community of about 80,000 people, when Health and Harmony funded the holistic solution, which was involving access to affordable health care, training in alternative livelihoods, and conservation through reforestation and education, between 2008 and 2018, we saw a 90% reduction in the number of households relying on logging as a livelihood. That facilitated a 70% reduction in the amount of rainforest that was lost compared to the control groups. That was the equivalent of 65 million US dollars worth of above ground carbon. From a human health point of view, in the clinic, in the catchment area of the clinic that the communities established, we saw a 67% drop in infant mortality and consistent declines of the common killers, malaria, tuberculosis, and diarrheal diseases. Those data were published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. If we get out of our own way at the level of multilateral global governance and transfer climate finance and climate resources into the hands of Earth's rainforest guardians, we all benefit. We all benefit no matter where we live on the planet.
And yes, maybe one thing that we can add is, as the name of your organization is called Health and Harmony, you work very closely with Doctors Without Borders in preventing also pandemics that could be born from climate non-resiliency. So thank you so much for your very important work. I think we have one more minute maybe? Oh, I think we're good.
We're good.
Thank you so much to both of you.
Thank you.
And to be continued.
Yes.
Work is not done. As I mentioned, change now is rooted in action, and I always want to give very concrete examples. So environmental intelligence, what does it mean in a concrete space? What does it mean in our modern world? And I found two great examples that are very related to right now, at Change Now, but also to the work of a great company called Strong by Form. But I'm going to start first, and the collaboration of this company with a larger group. I'm going to start first by welcoming Laetitia Guezennec, who is the Marketing and Communication Director at DASSAULT. Please join me. And Andrés Mitnik from Strong by Form, the CEO of Strong by Form. You will soon find out that I'm a big fan of Andrés and his work. So maybe, Andrés, maybe we'll start with you, and you can tell us what you do, who you are, and share the bit of the magic that you do every day.
Totally. Well, thank you, Nora, so much for the invitation. It's an honor to be here. I'm Andrés Mitnik. I am the CEO of Strong by Form. And Strong by Form is a startup that combines cutting-edge software with the latest digital fabrication techniques to do something that is pretty straightforward, which is replacing highly polluting materials like concrete, steel, aluminum, or reinforced plastics with wood. But that is easier said than done, because when you want to compete with these materials that have been around us for hundreds of years, you need to be very efficient and very smart. And that's when we realized that the most efficient way in using wood is not something that we humans have figured out, but it's the way a tree uses the wood. And that's why we put all our energy and resources in developing a timber-based composite that replicates the internal structure of trees. Because trees are lightweight and are very strong. They're even stronger than steel per unit of weight when working in tension. And what we're basically doing is bringing that natural intelligence to the world of engineered timber. Because when you think it for a moment, there's nothing more different from a tree than the boards and planks that surround us right now. And we lose all that natural intelligence when we transform 3D wood into flat wood.
And I'd like to mention that you studied at Harvard, right?
Yeah, I did.
And you did have a focus on indigenous knowledge, or of an interest, because you are from Latin America.
That's exactly right. Well, yeah, I am from Latin America. I'm originally from Chile. I was working at Harvard with Calestus Yuma, who is a professor that does a lot of native intelligence. And basically there, my research was about ecosystem services across communities. So how conserving natural resources upstream can help communities downstream, and how you make a system where that transfer can happen.
Thank you. Thank you. I thought it was very important to mention that. Very important point. And you've managed to create a wonderful collaboration with Laetitia's company. Maybe Laetitia, you can introduce yourself and tell us everything that you do.
Yes. So first, thank you, Nora, for the invitation. I'm very pleased to be on stage with you and with Andrés today. So let me introduce myself. I'm Laetitia Guezennec from the 3D Experience Lab, the Open Innovation Laboratory for DASSAULT system. I'm in charge of marketing and communication topic in the 3D Experience Lab. So I play a key role in promoting the voice, the mission, and the impact of the 3D Experience Lab to both internal and external audiences. And as a day-to-day basis, I'm supporting startups, part of our accelerator program, same as Strong by Form, to develop their awareness and to spread their disruptive innovation to the world, to industry leaders, to partners, and to investors. From a personal side, I'm involved in helping children with disability gain access to school and sport. I'm a general secretary of a French association that raises funds to support 3 NGOs in India that are committed to this kind of mission. So my objective is at some point to make impact, and very happy.
You are already. But I think what's interesting, so in the context of environmental intelligence and your work, when you enter the Grand Palais, there's actually an activation. Maybe you can tell us what the activation is, because I'm going to mess it up, I feel like. So the activation is very specific, and you will complete the information, but maybe you can start.
Totally, thank you. So the technology we developed is called Woodflow. And Woodflow can have different shapes and forms. It can be an architectural element, it can be a structural element for high-rise buildings, and it can even be a component of a car for the body of the car or for the interior. We're also working in trains, etc. And what we have done here with DASSAULT, so DASSAULT Systems is a company that help us access like the software that the corporate partners that we work with, they use it. So for a company like ours, it would be impossible to pay the type of software we need, and the collaboration with DASSAULT Systems is amazing in that sense. But also, they help us to do outreach, and they help us to spread the word, so people know that now there's a new way in how to use wood, and you can create new things. And that's why outside this building today, there is an augmented reality intervention where you can actually see the entrance of the Grand Palais as if it has been done in Woodflow, which is our material, instead of the stone, I guess, which is.
Yeah, it's stone, yeah.
And maybe you can complete the information on how they can see this installation.
Yeah, so we developed a huge communication campaign with DASSAULT system with the objective to develop Dassault system awareness, because we don't do plain. We do a lot of things linked to very advanced software. And we did this amazing augmented reality experience. So it's mainly for Parisian people, or if you want, or if you stay in Paris during the weekend. So I really encourage you to download the Energy Experience app. And so there is 9 augmented realities in Paris linked to very iconic and traditional monuments in Paris. And the first stop will be, of course, for Strong by Form, because at the entrance of the Grand Palais, the column are made with the wood flow composite. So, and there is also someone else at the entrance coming from Dassault system that could help you to download the app and to really experience what Dassault system do. So just to build on our collaboration with Andrés. So as I said previously, I'm part of the 3D Experience Lab, so the Open Innovation Laboratory for Dassault system. And the 3D Experience Lab is supporting and accelerating startups or disruptive innovation that creates a positive impact on people and on society. So twice a year, we organize a pitch session with 5 to 6 pre-filtered startups. And we select a few of them to participate to our accelerator program. So Strong by Form pitched, and they were selected to our program, and we are very proud to have them part of our accelerator program. So just few information of what do we have in this offer. So first, we give startup access to our software, the 3D Experience platform, all the Dassault system software for free. The second, we give access to a bunch of mentors, Dassault system mentors, experts on 11 industries. We also give access to a dedicated marketing and communication support to all the startups. And another thing which is quite important is that we give access to Fab Lab prototyping facilities to all the startups. And for free, all of this for free for 2 years. No fees, no IP claim, and 0 equity taken. So it's really a huge opportunity for the startup that want to make impact on the world, but to start to develop their innovations thanks to our software and our support.
Maybe, Andrés, you can tell us more also about all the applications that you are working on at the moment, because it stretches far beyond construction of buildings. It goes far beyond that.
Yeah, it does. The thing is that it's interesting. We are biomimicry. And what's interesting about it is that, and honestly, I didn't know this before I started this company, but when you think it for a moment, in nature, every being in nature is in the business of making the most using the minimum amount of resources. And as far as I understand, what Darwin said wasn't that the stronger one was the king, it was the one that better adapts. And adaptation means using as little as you can in the most efficient manner. And when you do this, many doors start to open. So our material is lighter than aluminum for the same strength. When we pitch this to car companies, they actually cannot believe it. So they open for a prototype. And that's why we've developed, together with BMW, components of the body of a car made out of wood. And this does not look like those 70s, like, you know, SUVs with a veneer. It's really like they look cars from the future using a traditional material. We're also working with the Dutch train company called NS to create components for their wagons that instead of using metal or plastics, they're using our wood. And the trick is that trees are 3D. You will never see a straight line in a tree. So shape is a very important part of the efficiency and how they use the wood. And we copy that. So by copying that, we created 3D wood. And 3D wood ends to be very flexible because you can do shapes that you cannot do traditionally in wood. And that's why we're looking at construction, but we're also looking at mobility. We have also been asked to do consumer products, which we're not doing right now because we need some focus. But the possibilities are enormous when you are based on something as smart as a natural being.
And as we know, I mean, BMW is known for its excellence. I'm guessing that they wouldn't be working with you if they didn't believe it, that there was the future. So strong by form for the future. I do believe that there's one more thing you can share with us, perhaps. It's we're experiencing right now, we're witnessing the development and the transition of the aerospace industry as well. And the interiors of planes also is something that could be using your material.
Well, exactly, because they're all about weight and strength. And one thing I discovered last week is that safety requirements for trains are higher than for airplanes. Exactly, because I guess, you know, like when a train crashes, there's something to do. When a plane, probably not. So that was an agenda that I thought it was very in the future, and now I realize that it can be actually, like in the shorter term, be able to do probably the interiors. I wouldn't think to do the exterior of a plane as of today, but definitely the interiors is something we can do.
And how do you see the future of buildings within your own space? Like right now, I was looking earlier as I was preparing. I mean, obviously the space has been renovated, it's beautiful, but there are wood structures up there. And I was like, well, it could have been your wood that they could have been using this.
Well, I mean, this building is a great example, because when you look at the top, you realize that actually the steel beams are getting thinner and thinner.
Yes.
So this design is 3D, and it's based on using the steel in the smartest possible way. And I think that was something that France at the end of the 19th century was very good at. This is not putting massive amount of steel. So at the end of the day, the way we see construction is not timber buildings made out of our material and that's it. We think that the key lies in using every material in the most smart way.
Yes.
So concrete is a very good material at the end of the day for specific uses. And there are some things where concrete is going to be better than wood. But when you combine a concrete core with a floor that weighs a tenth of the floor of a concrete floor, you need less concrete on the core. So what we are looking for actually is to be able to find a way in how to use each material in the smartest possible way. And that for us means the highest efficiency manner. And that's why we know we're not going to change construction by ourselves.
Yes.
And that's why we collaborate with DASSAULT Systems, but we collaborate with a number of companies, because there's no silver bullet to change an industry like construction. We are doing a contribution, but we need many others to do a contribution as well for that to really become a reality.
We're almost out of time, so I will be wrapping this up. Just wanted to thank you, Laetitia, and also thank you, Andrés. I know maybe one more second. You do have two other activations, one in the Parc Monceau.
Yes, so you can discover a first startup of our accelerator program in Paris. So the first round at the entrance of the Palais with Strong by Form. Net Zero, that is transforming agriculture into biochar. So there is a video over there. So we have Net Zero. We have also Midi Pile, Place de la Victoire, and Île Energy on the Seine. So I really encourage you to download or to scan the QR code at the end and discover all amazing startup part of our program that really make impact in terms of energy and mobility. So thank you, and if you have questions, we can meet after that, and I will give you more information about DASSAULT system and our program. Thank you.
I think this closes our panel on environmental intelligence. I hope you found it inspiring or interesting. The goal of this panel was to invite the collective to think differently, to change our mindset to an indigenous mindset, because we're all indigenous of the earth, and we need to work together to preserve it and preserve our culture, stories, and beautiful lives that we can all have, not just a few. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nora. Thank you, Andrés.